Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Student Scientific Association of Medical University of Silesia in Katowice, I'd like to thank you for taking part in the International Medical Congress of Silesia 2024. My name is Radosław Dudczak, and it's my pleasure to moderate session of Public Health and Healthcare 2, which was organized and coordinated by Natalia Wróbel. I would like to welcome the esteemed jury. President of the jury, Dr. Jolanta Malinowska-Borowska, and members of the jury, Dr. Anna Niesler and Dr. Mateusz Grajek, who is joining us online today. I'd like to begin with explaining basic rules of this session. The order of the presentation will be the same as in the abstract book. Maximum time for the presentation is 7 minutes, followed by 3 minutes of the discussion. If the presenter exceeds the time, he or she needs to move on to the conclusions and finish the presentations as soon as possible. Now a few information for our esteemed jury. I'd like to kindly remind you that if you are the supervisor of the paper which is presented, you should not assess the work. In that case, please cross out the number on your card. Other members of the same clinic are able to assess the presentation. Please bear in mind that this assessment will be verified. All the presentations and the discussion must be run in English. Even if the Commission will ask the question in Polish, the authors of the work are obligated to answer in English. We kindly ask the jury to assess 4 elements on the scale of 1 to 5. Scientific value, way of presenting, discussion, and creative contribution of the students. When the session ends, we kindly ask you to give the cards back to the moderator, that would be me. And that concludes the preliminary part of the session, and we can proceed to the first presentation. I would like to ask the presenter of the paper entitled The Human Body, an Inavailable Element in the Training of Future Health Professionals. Good luck.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aleksandra Kępczyńska, and I'm 4th-year medical student at Medical University of Silesia in Katowice. On behalf of myself and my colleagues, I would love to present to you the results of our study presenting the human body as an available element in future healthcare professionals. But before I start, I would like to thank to our tutor, Dr. Tomasz Lepik, for his assistance and supervision of the project. As we delve into the depths of medical history, we are reminded that the roots of cadaver dissection stretch back to the ancient city of Alexandria in the 3rd century before Christ. From those early beginnings until now, the human anatomy has been a cornerstone of medical education, shaping the knowledge and skills of future healthcare professionals. Worth noting is the fact that the first conscious donating program took place at this university in 2003. So me as a student, I'm proud of it because the students' contact with the dead human body is not only an irreplaceable element of their education, but also it affects their emotional maturity and teach their respect. The purpose of our study was to find out the opinion of the Polish society on the donation of cadavers for scientific and didactic purposes. We conducted a single-choice survey based on a questionnaire filled out anonymously. We collected the data both on the paper and through the internet. Our group is represented by 702 women and 304 men. Significant majority of our respondents have previously heard about the voluntarily donating their bodies for teaching and learning anatomy. Furthermore, less than half of the respondents is considering donating their bodies to the science. The results of our research are both enlightening and encouraging. Among the participants surveyed, a staggering 86% of our respondents expressed their belief in the essential role of human body in effectively anatomy teaching. Almost 70% of our respondents agreed that medical students other than medical majors should also learn anatomy using the human cadavers. At this point, we also wanted to know the opinion if the knowledge about the cadaver donation is accurate. And as you may see, just only 11% of our respondents think so. With that being said, we also asked our respondents if, in their opinion, increasing the public awareness and the public knowledge about those programs would increase the numbers of donors and decrease the fear. And as you see, almost 90% of our respondents agreed to that statement. Furthermore, it is worth noting that non-religious individuals are more inclined to donate their bodies for scientific and didactic purposes compared to believers. Additionally, statistically significant differences were observed in the consideration of body donation between the residents of small agglomerations and rural areas compared to the residents of large cities. Interestingly, our study revealed that no correlation was found between the sex or gender and the possibility of donating bodies to the cadaver dissection programs, nor the marital status. There are many studies in the available scientific articles presenting the attitude of students and anatomists toward body donating programs. However, there are just few studies describing the general populations. This is probably due to the easier conduct of the study on the students than on the general population. However, it seems that the research on general population is crucial. That's why I would love to highlight that our study is the largest its kind in the world. In conclusion, our finding underscore the importance of raising awareness and addressing concerns surrounding cadaver donation for scientific purposes. The statement that the human body is the best anatomical atlas remains relevant. Increasing public awareness of cadaver donation may contribute increasing the effectiveness of anatomy teaching at medical universities. That leads me to the end of my presentation. But before I finish, I want to thank for the opportunity to present our results today. And also, I would love to express my gratitude to our donors for donating their bodies so the medical students, as myself, can learn anatomy and could have had the better understanding of anatomy, which may help us in the future on the surgical, for example, in operating room and clinical practice. Thank you all for your attention, and I'm open to the discussion.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have questions from the jury?
Thank you. May I sit, or it's better to sit? Maybe I will sit because probably I will ask questions not only after your presentation. I have to say that you decided to take a very difficult subject, but it's very also important because I think attitudes toward donations are really important, and here I have to say something like congratulations. But I have a question according to age, because I think that age could be a factor modifying this attitude. Do you check how age is modifying this attitude?
Thank you for this question. That's a really good question. Unfortunately, in this study, we didn't we didn't ask our respondents about the age, because mostly the group of respondents were seniors. They were the elder people, but unfortunately we didn't record their age in the study.
I think in the next time you have to ask about the age, because probably this factor is really important in questions like that. Younger people like you, probably are have more knowledge about this problem, and their attitudes will be more positive. And another question, which I think should I ask? Do you check any results, any papers around the world? Because 1,000 people is really huge population. What about? So we can say it's a paper concerning Polish attitude. What about other countries?
Yes, of course, we checked all the data, and unfortunately, fortunately, as I said, our paper is the largest its kind. There are few researchers on general population, but there are just small, like 300 people from other countries, like South Africa, for example. But the results are comparable to ours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions maybe from the online jury? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation and discussion. And I'd like to invite our second presenter, who will present work entitled Analysis of Adolescent Mothers' Childbirth and Health Trends in Lithuania.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everything is fine with the sound.
Yes, sound is great, but we would need you to upload your presentation to share it to us.
I will try. Okay. I hope everything is all right here.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Viktorija Verbauskaitė from Vilnius University in Lithuania. I'm a sixth-year medical student, and today, with my colleague Ieva Vanagaitė, which is not present, we are very grateful and honored for the opportunity to present to you this work called Analysis of Adolescent Mothers, Childbirths, and Health Trends in Lithuania that we have done under the supervision of Dr. Eglė Marija Jakimavičienė. The global rate of adolescent mothers has fallen around 12% over the past 20 years. The biggest decline in the number of adolescent mothers have been in the developed regions of the world, for example, Europe, and the highest rates of mothers remain in the developing regions of the world, such as West Africa, which is not surprising. In developing countries, about 21 million pregnancies and around 12 million births occur annually among girls aged from 15 to 19. And pregnancies among adolescent girls is a global problem with serious social and medical consequences for the health and for the mother and the child. And complications of the pregnancy and childbirth remain the leading cause of mortality among girls aged from 15 to 19 in the developing world. So the aim of our work was to assess the socio-demographic, health, and physical characteristics of the adolescent mothers who gave birth in a 25-year period in Lithuania. We subtracted data from Lithuanian Birth Medical Data Register, which involved 46,295 adolescent mothers from 1995 to 2020, and the data was analyzed using programs MS Excel and R software. Between 1995 to 2020, births to adolescent mothers in Lithuania declined significantly, from around 10% to around 2% of all births, which is very glad to see. Mean maternal age was 18.2 with a standard deviation 1, and girls age 18 to 19 accounted for the largest proportion, around 79%, while girls age 15 to 17 accounted for around 21%. During the period under review, 136 girls age 10 to 14 years gave birth. Almost all, 99.5% of adolescents gave birth for the first time, and only 0.5% gave for the second or more times. The majority of underage mothers were Lithuanians, and that accounted for around 87%, followed by Poles or Polish, also Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians. The majority had only middle school education, around 56%, and were married, around 48.6%. Around 60% of adolescent mothers lived in urban areas, and around 40% lived in rural areas. So it's about half-half. Compared to the general population, significantly more young girls smoked during pregnancy, while the prevalence of alcohol and drug use did not differ significantly between young mother and general population. The rate of vaginal delivery was statistically higher in adolescent mothers, and the rate of cesarean section surgery was statistically lower than in general population. Although they experienced lower rates of obstetric complications in younger girls and pregnancy-related pathologies, they faced higher incidences of narrow pelvis, impending termination of pregnancy, and premature rupture of membranes. Despite having a lower overall incidence of chronic diseases, which is not surprising, they exhibit a significantly higher incidence of anemia and lower incidence of reproductive tract infections compared to the general population or older women. So this is now our literature review. What is saying about this topic? We found that the largest proportion of adolescent mothers were girls from the age 18 to 19, and their mean age was a little bit higher than the one we found. In the developing countries, pregnant adolescent mothers were more likely to live in rural areas, which in our study we found that it was half-half. Also, adolescent mothers were more likely to come from socially economical disadvantages background, because in 2006, girls from 18 to 19, which were pregnant, only 50% of them had completed secondary school. We found similar results. Of all adolescent mothers, the majority were married. The number is a little bit higher in the literature than in our study. Adolescent mothers also reported more frequent use of tobacco, marijuana, and alcohol compared to adult mothers. And also, as in our study, in the literature, it shows that compared to the general population, vaginal delivery was more common in adolescent girls, whereas the incidence of C-section was lower. The same thing could be said now about anemia, preterm delivery, and narrow pelvis, which were more common in the adolescent girls. And the most common comorbidities in adolescent mothers during pregnancy in literature was hypertension, urinary tract infections, and abnormal vaginal discharges. So, So to conclude, adolescent births in Lithuania decreased in the 25-year period, especially for older girls. And most mothers had limited education, were married, and lived outside major cities. They smoked more during pregnancy, but had fewer complications and chronic diseases compared to the general population. This is our references, and thank you for your attention. Maybe you have some questions.
Thank you. Do we have some questions?
Thank you. I have to ask about your contribution. How much work was done by you and your friend?
This work was totally done by me and my colleague, and our work tutor only overlooked what type of calculations we should do and which type of data we should subtract, because there were a lot of data and a lot of questions, and we just presented half of it, half of everything we calculated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have some additional questions?
Yes, I have a question. Tell me, were there any criteria of excluding data from this study?
No, there were no exclusion criteria. We just included the mothers which were of the age we were studying, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, the time for the discussion has passed. So thank you once more for the presentation. And now we'll present our next work, that is physical and health analysis of newborns born to adolescent mothers in Lithuania.
I'll try to share again my slides with you. So I hope everything is fine here and you can see what I am presenting.
Yes, we are hearing you and seeing your presentation.
Perfect. So this is another work of ours, which was done again under the supervision of the same tutor, and it is called Physical and Health Analysis of Newborns Born to Adolescent Mothers in Lithuania. So in this work, we studied the newborns. The previous study was about the mothers. The World Health Organization reports that nearly 2 million girls under 16 and additional 16 million girls aged 15 to 19 experience pregnancy annually. These figures underscore a significant and concerning trend, highlighting adolescent pregnancy as a pressing global issue. Beyond the sheer volume of young girls giving birth each year, their babies face higher risk of health complications, including low birth weight, premature delivery, and severe neonatal conditions, often resulting in mortality. Considering the relevance of adolescent pregnancy, we aim to examine the physical and health characteristics of newborns born to adolescent mothers from age 10 to 19 in Lithuania from 1995 to 2020 in order to evaluate the potential impact of maternal age on newborns' health. In Lithuania, there is an Institute of Hygiene which publishes a wide range of statistical information on human health. Me and my partner gathered medical data of births from institutions' printed publications as well as its website, depending on the year. So older years were gathered from printed publications because they are not available online. We included data that met the inclusion criteria regarding newborns born in that period of time for the mothers, as mentioned before, from the age from 10 to 19. In total, there were 46,780 newborns data, which were analyzed using the same programs as mentioned in previous presentation. So here are the results. Among newborns born to adolescent mothers, the mean gestational age was significantly lower than the general population. The majority, around 92%, were born full term. The proportion of preterm births, which you can see on the left side of the screen, well, for me on the left, 5.8% to 8.9% between 1995 to 2020. Neonatal weight was significantly lower than the general population. Around 0.3% newborns were extremely low birth weight, so 999 or lower. Around 0.6% were very low birth weight, so from 1,000 to 1,499 grams. 5.1% were low birth weight, and 8.6% were high birth weight, so 4,000 and more. grams. The mean height, or for babies, it is length of newborns were 51.6 with standard deviation 2.5. And their head circumference was 34.0 with standard deviation 1.6. Both is significantly lower than that of general population. Neonatal morbidity was significantly higher in children born to adolescent mothers, with around 67% of newborns having one pathology and around 33 two or more pathologies. Around 10% neonatal abnormalities were related to gestation and fetal growth, around 6.5% to respiratory and cardiovascular disorders, and 6.4% hemorrhage and hematological disorders. 3.8% were born with congenital malformations. Neonatal mortality was around 0.5% of all births of adolescent mothers. The most common causes of death was intrauterine hypoxia, neonatal respiratory distress syndrome, and cardiovascular malformations. 62% of deaths were premature, so under 36 weeks. Stillbirth incidence ranged from around 0.2 to 1.1 and was the largest. We are not really sure why, but in 2019 it was the highest. So adolescent pregnancy poses various risks, both the mother and the baby. Firstly, it is linked to higher chances of low birth weight, shorter length or height, and smaller head circumference for the newborn, as mentioned before. Additionally, because young mothers are still growing themselves, the nutrients are unevenly distributed between mother and the child, and negatively impacting the fetus and potentially leading to premature birth. The increased risk of premature birth contributes to a higher likelihood of neonatal and perinatal death. Moreover, babies born to adolescent mothers often, as mentioned before, have lower birth weight, which further increases the risk of mortality. Lastly, compared to adult mothers, adolescent mothers face a higher risk of stillbirth, particularly during the delivery, especially if the mother is very young. The younger, the worse complications. So this is our conclusions of the work, that the gestational age as well as anthropometric characteristics of newborns born to Lithuanian adolescent mothers were significantly lower than those of general population during study period. As well, neonates of Lithuanian adolescent mothers had a significantly higher overall morbidity than general population. Excuse me. And perinatal mortality and stillbirth rates were interestingly not significantly different from the general populations. So we conclude that adolescent mothers, newborns face diverse health challenges requiring targeted interventions for better outcome. So we could possibly think about young girls' education, sex education in particular, and as well more attention to young women, children. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Do we have some questions from the jury?
Thank you. I would like to ask about the slide when you present anthropometric values of children. Because there was written the statistical significance, but I'm not sure if there is the significance is between males and females, or between children of general population and children of premature birth. Do you remember the slide? Can you show us it one more time?
Okay, I will try again. Are you asking about the anthropometric features that were mentioned, the sexes?
Yes,
or
yes. And
I will try to pinpoint the slide. Sorry, I'm having a problem with the computer. You mean this slide?
Yeah, because it's written that with females, males, and it's written that statistical significance is here. So
you mean this one?
It doesn't matter because weight, height, head circumference, it's all the time is written that P is below is below 0.001. Yes, so it means that the results are statistically significant. So
yes,
I would like to ask.
So
because you said
if you ask the weight, height, and length, then yes, it is compared to general population.
Okay.
These anthropometric features between young mother children, there were significant difference by the gender.
Okay, so the comparison was between babies of
yes, of the adolescent mothers and general population.
And general population.
We just added this one, so well, in literature it is shown that just
so I think it should be
baby
written.
boys are bigger than baby girls.
Yeah,
so
I think it should be written because
thing.
From this slide it looks like there is difference between females and males according to weight, to height, and head circumferences.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, sorry for the
it's great.
inconvenience, but no, this is compared. The P's you see near the weight, length, and head circumference. This is general population.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions?
Yes, I have a question. What was your motivation for conducting this study?
Every year we get different teams on our conference. It is similar something to yours, and we got a very good tutor which suggested this team because there were a study for older women over the age of 40. And she decided to present us with this team. Maybe we will be interested. So this is why we decided with my colleague to investigate it, because we were just interested.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and discussion. Unfortunately, the time for discussion has passed out. So now we'll proceed to our next presenter, who will present the work Frequency of Vitamin D3 Deficiency in the Adult Population of the Warsaw University Hospital.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Kaja Tyszkiewicz, and I'm a third-year medical student. Please join me as we dive into the details of our study and its implications for public health. Okay, so vitamin D takes place in various physiological processes, and its deficiency may result in serious health conditions. Due to these facts, it has been widely supplemented during the last decades. Nevertheless, several studies point out that the supplementation is ineffective, and the high percentage of population exhibits deficiency of vitamin D. In 2002 study conducted among women living in Denmark, Finland, Ireland and Poland, which involved measuring the concentration of vitamin D in winter, more than half of adults had serum vitamin D concentration below 20 nanograms per milliliter. And similar results were found in study conducted on the adult population of Great Britain, Ireland, the Netherlands, Spain, Greece, Germany, and Poland 5 years later. Focusing on the Polish population, in 2016, among the studied adult residents of Łódź, vitamin D concentrations below 30 nanograms per milliliter, considered by researchers as optimal, were found in only about 30% of population. And in study conducted on the pandemic population, pediatric population in Warsaw in the pandemic between 2019 and 2021, a decrease in vitamin D concentration was found in all age groups. During the pandemic, also no characteristic seasonal variability caused by indicated exposure to sunlight was observed. So our study aimed to assess the frequency of vitamin D deficiency in the adult population of Warsaw University Hospital to validate the impact, also to validate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the frequency of it. So let's proceed to the next slide for more details. So we wanted to assess how frequency of vitamin D deficiency changed over a long period of time, because earlier studies showed just 1 year or only a few. So we were searching the database from 2011 to 2022. And here you have the equipment used for measuring the concentration of vitamin D in the serum. And here are the values which we took as the deficiency, so the concentration below 20 nanograms per milliliter, and also critical deficiency less than 10 nanograms per milliliter. And the data consisted of samples from a total of over 22,000 patients, of whom 14.5 were collected from the periods of from 2011 to 2019, and about 7,500 were from 2020 to 2022, which is the pandemic period. The vitamin D deficiency was observed in almost 30% of patients over this time, and it was significantly more common in men, almost 35%, than the women, about 26%, and critical vitamin D deficiency was observed in 6.5% of patients, and it also occurred more often in men, about 10%, than the women, 5%. The highest percentage of deficiency was observed in 2011, almost 60%, and in the following years it gradually decreased. In 2022, there were diagnosed in about 20% of patients. A higher percentage of vitamin D deficiency in women was found only in 2011 and 2012, but from 2012, deficiency were more common in men. And in 2020 to 2022, during the COVID pandemic, the decline in the number of people deficient in vitamin D has slowed down, as you can see on the graph, which flattened. Overall, the results suggest a positive trend in the reduction of vitamin D deficiency in a study population, which may reflect increased awareness and implication of supplementation. Oh, that's its literature I was talking about earlier. I forgot to this slide, I'm sorry. So the conclusions are that there is a positive trend. However, despite this positive trend, the frequency of vitamin D deficiency remains really significant. And further efforts should be made to promote supplementation and increase awareness of the importance of maintaining adequate levels of vitamin D. And additionally, we may need to reevaluate the recommended doses and principles of application to ensure that they are effective in meeting the needs of different populations, which may contribute to improving the health and quality of life of patients. And at the end, I would like to express my gratitude to Grzegorz Szczęsny, the trustee of the paper, and Emilia Lutostańska-Sznaza, the laboratory manager, for providing us with access to the hospital database. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, and we invite you to ask the questions.
would like to, because the subject is really interesting, but I know that it's not was only your work. Who were taking the blood, who were doing laboratory work, who freeze it, and because after the last slide, I believe that you only did the report and statistical data. Yes.
Yeah. About the work, we did not do any laboratory work. We had the database and we did the literature review, and the database was not really well prepared for data analysis. We had to manually cut out patients who were measured more than once to have better results. So to not have multiple measurements during the course of treatment. And me and my colleague Barbara Buchalska overview the literature and analyze the data provided by the laboratory.
The data are really important and the population is quite huge.
Yes.
But I think you need more relations, because I would like to ask, who really suffer from deficiency? Yes. How old are these people, or do they spend time outside, or do they supplement it?
We do not have data about supplementation and the time spent outside. We did this on the population of the patients from the hospital, so they were already suffering from some conditions, most of them orthopedic and cardiovascular, and also from some kidney diseases. Okay. And we analyzed also this population by age and gender more precisely, but I had only 7 minutes, so I took an overview of it. We're in the process of writing a paper, and we want to publish it in some Polish journal, which is prenumerated by internists to raise the awareness, because they're the first line that patients may see. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know in what group of age the level of vitamin D was the lowest?
In our study, it was men age from 40 to 60, I believe. I have this data not on my presentation, but on the paper there are such data, and as I can recall, it was men 40 to 60.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the lower deficiency were in a woman in that age. We think that it was because of the anti-osteoporosis policy, so they're more frequently supplemented vitamin D. So there are a lot of there are more things we can take from this data, but too little time to talk about this all.
Do we have any additional questions?
Yes, I have a question. You have a conclusion about education. Yes. And I have a question about, do you have any ideas how to increase public awareness, public knowledge about vitamin D supplementation?
I'm not sure because it is a problem which is raised. I think there are a lot of ways to find out about it. There are a lot of also commercials with the supplements which really tell about the effects of having vitamin D deficiency. There are lots of supplements that producers talk about how good they are. I think it is a pretty common knowledge, but vitamin D deficiency may not have immediate effects on our body, and we may not be aware of the deficiency, and I think a lot of people just do not check. I'm not sure how we can elevate the awareness, so I think I answered the question.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will proceed to our next presenter. And the next work is Adverse Reaction After Vaccination Against COVID-19.
So good afternoon, everyone, dear Commission and dear audience. My name is Kaja Sobieszczuk, and I am from the Department of Medical Biophysics, Faculty of Medical Sciences in Katowice. It is an honor to present to you the results of our work entitled Adverse Reactions After Vaccination Against COVID-19. So from the beginning of the coronavirus disease pandemic in 2019, the number of people infected with SARS-CoV-2 virus has been drastically enlarging. The world, especially the public health system, had to take up the challenge and quickly localize the pandemic and minimize the consequences of global crisis. Therefore, due to enormous effort, the development of vaccine against SARS-CoV-2 virus followed immediately and resulted in the registration of 5 vaccines. So the immunization is among the most successful and cost-effective public health intervention. It has led to the global eradication of smallpox as well as the eradication of poliomyelitis in regions of the world. Although the aspect of vaccine injuries still appeared to be one of the most significant limiting factors, resulting in low vaccination rate. Hence, all vaccine-associated adverse reactions must be promptly identified and notified for patients' observation and further research. So the COVID-19 vaccine, which was the main tool used to counteract the global pandemic, was authorized by the European Medicines Agency, and additionally the World Health Organization published a causality assessment of an adverse event following immunization, user manual for the revised WHO classification second edition, which was a guideline for the classification of the severity of adverse reactions after immunization. So the aim of our study was to investigate whether the post-vaccination side effects depend statistically on the COVID-19 disease symptoms and divided by their severity. And moreover, our work intends to improve general awareness on vaccine safety. And the immunization safety has become a highly important factor. Therefore, it was obligatory to monitor and study all vaccine-associated adverse events after vaccination in both pediatric and adult population. So moving on to the materials and methodology, in our study, we evaluated 100 female patients, and we conducted a retrospective examination, and the research was carried out from October 2022 to February 2023. Based on the data collected from the originally prepared questionnaire, the study group was divided by the age and level of education, and we can see that in Table 1 the most patients fall within the ambit of 18 to 25 age range, and that the most common level of education was secondary. Moreover, the questionnaire consisted of anthropometric and demographic data, as well as the history of COVID-19 infection, presenting symptoms, and adverse reaction post-vaccination. So both symptoms of COVID-19 disease and adverse events reactions were classified into 3 categories: mild, medium, and severe. And the collected data were analyzed using descriptive statistics, and for statistical evaluation we used Fisher's exact test and chi-square test. The p-value less than 0.05 was considered statistically significant to the study. So the results of the analysis are presented both in Table 3 and Figure 1, and it is shown that in 53.45% of patients the symptoms of COVID-19 disease were classified as mild, while the moderate signs of the illness were found in 41.38% of patients, and only 5.17% of the study group of patients declared that their condition was severe. In the majority of the study group, mild side effects after vaccination against COVID-19 predominated. It is shown that the mild symptoms occurred in 61.21% of patients, medium in 36.21%, and the severe in 2.59% of study group. Our results align with the figures from the Polish State Sanitary Inspectorate, and according to the database collected since 27th of December 2020, there has been reported 18,781 cases of side effects after vaccination against COVID-19, and furthermore, the 50,625 of reported incidents were classified as mild, short-lasting achness and rarefaction. So after, in Figure 1, we can see that the mild adverse events after vaccination against COVID-19 were found either in mild and moderate symptoms of the disease. The mild symptoms of COVID-19 disease occurred in 33 people of the study group, which is 60.56%, and the moderate signs of the illness appeared in 25 patients, which equals 35.21%. So, moreover, the outcome of the patients who declared medium side effects was similar. The severity of the disease were both mild, 18 patients, which is 42.86%, or moderate, which is 22 patients, equals 52.38% of study group. So the p-value equals 0.09, which results in this relation between the severity of the disease symptoms and the severity of adverse events after vaccination. So I'd like to sum up our work. It is proven that the vaccination against SARS-CoV-2 virus is a key intervention for public health immunity, and the preventative role of the vaccination profits to minimize the risk of severe post-COVID complication. And based on our study, any post-vaccination side effects usually are mild or medium and short-lasting. They include mainly local reactions at the injection site, which confirms the results in other studies. Additionally, the reports of severe side effects to coronavirus vaccine were very rare, and the take-home message of this research is that the proper statistical analysis is a fundamental, and that the current knowledge of relationship between COVID-19 disease and the complication after vaccination still requires further investigation. So this is all. Thank you for your attention. Here's the literature, and I'm open to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I invite all of you to the discussion. Do we have some questions?
Thank you. I would like to ask, because you said that side effects could be mild, moderate, or severe.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me, was it done by the self-opinion of the respondent, or it was done by the physician?
No, it was a subjective feeling of the respondent who responded to our questionnaire.
Okay, thank you. And tell me about your contribution. What did you do in this work?
Firstly, we prepared and distributed the original questionnaire, mostly to the students of nursing school, and later we conducted a statistical analysis and we presented it in a form of a presentation. Also, we are working on a publication of the paper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any additional questions, maybe from Dr. Grajek online?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. And I warmly welcome our next speaker, who will present the work entitled Retrospective Analysis of Repeated Work Capacity Evaluations in Lithuanian Occupational Disease Cohort.
Hi, thanks for the warm welcome. Just give me a second to share my screen. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's amazing. Okay. Give me a sec. Here we go. So, hello once again, Katowice. My name is Andrus. I'm from Vilnius University. And today I will present to you my findings on repeated work capacity evaluations. So, occupational diseases impose a significant burden to all affected sites, governing bodies, treasuries, and of course, people that are suffering from occupational diseases. They are usually latent, usually inflicting harsh effects, and are rarely curbed or cured. So it would stand to reason that a person's disability level should not dramatically fluctuate. However, a larger part of those being evaluated are sent to repeated checkups every 1 to 2 years. So, according to recent sources, occupational disability usually affects lower-paying manual labor workers. And however, there is noticeable deficiency in comprehensive long-term data regarding occupational diseases in those sources. So, the aim of my study was to analyze distribution of work capacity levels in occupational disease patients who applied for disability compensation. Also, it was to assess the efficiency of repeated short-term evaluations, meaning 1 year, 2 year, or half a year evaluations. So, my anonymized data was obtained from Agency for the Protection of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities database. I know it's a mouthful, I won't be repeating it again, so be calm. So, total of 5,827 entries of 2,856 individuals were analyzed over a 10-year period dating throughout 2013-2022. Research data was systemized using Microsoft Excel, and data analysis was performed using IBM's SPSS program. Additional research was made through PubMed and Lithuanian Work Inspections database, as well as Eurostat, and I can see that I didn't add it here, but just so you know that basically the largest body of data was also looked at, or data. So, on to the results. Research cohort consisting of 2,080 males and 776 males was analyzed. Majority of participants fell within the age bracket of 55 years and older. 75% of them were males and 68% were females. So far, business as usual. What is more interesting, that almost a half of individuals, just under 46%, had achieved tertiary education. That means that they had bachelor's, unfinished doctorate, or doctorate. This goes in stark contrast with traditional view and traditional observance up until this point in Europe, and especially in Lithuania, which states that in average about 25% of low-educated individuals have a disability, compared to only 11%, which is twice twice as less of highly educated individuals. Upon closer inspection, however, data reveals that majority of those people were employed as blue-collar workers in various industrial settings, as laborers, lorry drivers, welders, and so on. So, the results reaching as far as 10 years ago, one could believe that there should be several prominent occupational disease factors. However, that is not the case. Majority of described cases were related to vibration, roughly 44%, while the only other large part of the cases were labeled as other. More exotic risk factors, such as exposure to toxic agents in agricultural environment, air contaminants, radiation, were exceedingly rare, with only 2 cases over the 10-year period at most. So now on to the main point of presentation. 54% of participants were referred for repeated 2 or more evaluations, while most of them had 2 evaluations. 26%, 27% were evaluated from 3 to 7 times, and only 0.3% more than 8 times. Of course, there were outliers. As you can see, two individuals were referred to a repeated checkup more than once a year for 10 years straight. Also, I believe it is important to stress that according to Lithuanian law, individual may voluntarily apply for re-evaluation at any point after the initial evaluation. For example, over observed period, 229 individuals qualified for an indefinite term on their first try and still reapplied voluntarily. So, yes, going on with the results. Trend was observed for working capacity levels to stay the same between evaluations. In the graph, you can see that in the group of 2 consecutive evaluations, result did not change for 60% of the applicants. So on your right, on the graph, you can see the change on the x-axis and difference in change. And on the y-axis, you can see the frequency. Difference in working capacity levels comparing first and last, meaning first and second, first and third, first and fourth, evaluations were not statistically significant. Instances of 5+ re-evaluations per person were not taken into account because of small sample size. So now on to the discussion. Distribution of participants may suggest that higher education motivates to seek professional assistance in the cohort most susceptible to occupational disease. Or it may point to the fact that majority of people achieve high education and cannot use it in the workplace or work environment. More research is needed on this topic. Second point is that a sizable portion of occupational diagnosis may go underreported due to poor documentation and recognition by primary care specialists. This may conceal the real extent of relevant occupational diseases. This all could have implications for healthcare systems, potentially leading to more efficient resource allocation by reducing unnecessary evaluations. So, all in all, work capacity levels did not fluctuate statistically significantly. We could draw a conclusion that a current practice of repeated evaluations for assessing working capacity levels may not be necessary. So, that would be all. Thank you for your time and patience. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I have a question because
Yes.
you have to tell us what system do we have in Lithuania, because in Poland we've got a list system, so it means that we've got
Yes.
a list of occupational diseases, but also in some countries we've got a definition system based on a definition of occupational disease. So tell me, which one is in your country, or maybe both together?
In my country, you basically have occupational health specialist, which can refer you to other governing body. And although you do have to write out the ICD code, like Z something something, the working person, I myself am working as a consultant in that governing body. We have to evaluate not according to the diagnosis, but according to the extent of the trouble. For example, let's say if the person has got a bad back due to long working years in a construction site, then we must evaluate the angles of the spinal cord, if they are severely limited or only a little bit.
So it means that you've got definition system that according to the definition you will try to find if is it possible to diagnose a disease in this patient, in this person, in this worker. We are trying to find occupational disease. Yes, it's like something like that.
Yes, basically yes, in so many words.
And another question is according to the vibration, because you said the exposure to vibration was one of the most common in your study. Do you check why? Because, for example, in Poland, vibration is a factor which decreases year after year. For example, 10 years ago, we've got about 120 people with hand-eye vibration syndrome. Last year, it was only 20. Why so many people are exposed to vibration?
Sorry, did you finish or did I cut you off?
Sorry.
Okay, so basically, from my own experience as an evaluator and from what I've seen the colleagues do, basically they only write the vibration diagnosis and then they chuck anything they can beneath it. So they don't, they do not differentiate between the different underlying factors, you could say. They basically just write it off as a vibration. If you have a bad spine, which is the vast majority of cases, they just write that Z, I believe it's Z11 point something, and spinal ICD code M51.1. And they just cannot be bothered to check deeper.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I would like to ask about allergens. In which groups they are qualified, to the dust or the other group?
Yeah, in Lithuania we have, I had in the last 10 years, I don't think I have time to show the Excel file, I had in the last 10 years one case related to allergy due to fertilizers, and one case related to pollen. So basically 2 cases over the 10-year period.
Okay. Okay,
so I hope I answered your question.
House dust
not
mite.
A lot of those.
You don't have a case with house dust mite?
House mites?
Mites.
Oh, yeah. Since it's occupational diseases, I don't believe mites have a large predisposition in occupational environment. So I'm not sure if I understood the question, honestly.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and unfortunately we do not have time for any additional questions.
Thank you for your time.
I'd like to invite our next speaker who will present the work entitled Socio-Medical Study on Knowledge, Beliefs and Attitudes of Hemodialysis Patients Towards Xenotransplantation.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present my presentation about socio-medical study of knowledge, beliefs and attitudes of hemodialysis patients towards xenotransplantation. As statistics from December 2023 show, 1,193 patients were awaiting kidney transplants, while only 81 organs were transplanted. This is from Poltrans. We need significantly more organs than are available, and xenotransplantation may be the answer to our needs. Preparation for the transplantation of pig kidney have been underway since 2020, and our study focused on the opinions and attitudes of patients toward the potential procedure. In this paper, we will present the results of socio-medical study concerning knowledge, beliefs, attitudes, and social resistance among patients undergoing chronic hemodialysis towards kidney transplantation from a pig. Here is a picture of the work. The empirical foundation of this study comprises interdisciplinary research conducted at the Department of Nephrology, Transplantology, and Internal Medicine of the Silesian Medical University in Katowice. The study, conducted between 2020 and 2023, was situated at the nexus of medicine and sociology. Dr. Katarzyna Kowal supervised the sociolegal component of the project. Data analysis relied on insights garnered from socio-medical in-depth interview administered by students of Jan Długosz University in Częstochowa. The study group consisted of chronically dialysis patients whose purposive selection was determined by qualification for transplantation surgery. The studied patients demonstrated diverse perspectives categorized into 5 distinct typologies: exclusive acceptance of human kidney, unequivocal support for xenotransplantation, conditional acceptance of a pig kidney, openness to organ of any origin, and categorical rejection of an animal delivered kidney. The first aspect that I will discuss is exclusive acceptance of a human kidney. As you might expect, this position applies mainly to older people who are afraid to experiment with their health and are not convinced that innovative methods work. However, it is interesting that similar beliefs occur among people at such a young age as the cited 33-year-old woman. The second position that is important for the development of xenotransplantation is the position that, strangely enough, also dominates among older people, namely support and willingness to try a new method. I think it may be due to belief that life ends for them anyway, or the hope of returning to the dexterity of the EU. The next position is openness to organ transplantation, regardless of origin. The position is mainly expressed by young and middle-aged people and educated people. Let me quote the patient: "Give me anything as long as it works." I think this is a manifestation of a desperate pursuit of lost health. The penultimate position is the categorical refusal to accept a kidney from an animal, regardless of what animal it comes from. Among the respondents, there was a belief that animal organs were ineffective or that they had lost their humanity due to having an animal element within them. Another important aspect mentioned by patients was public opinion, which, according to the respondents, would be critical of people after xenotransplantation. The last element that was detailed based on our research was a conditional transplant from a pig. Patients from different age groups showed fear of possible consequences. Many of them declared their willingness to accept a pig transplant, provided they were fully examined and the results were documented. At the end, I want to tell that the data collected highlighted 2 main attitudes: absolute rejection or unconditional acceptance of xenotransplantation. We argue that the presented attitudes result from the innovative nature of xenotransplantation, raising concern and skepticism. Human kidney transplants have been used in the treatment of chronic kidney disease for a long time, where xenotransplantations are new in this field. We hope that over time patients' attitudes will improve and xenotransplantation will prove to be a method that will allow patients to recover. Thank you. If there is any question, feel free to answer.
Thank you very much, and we have one more co-author joining to our discussion. Do we have any questions?
I have to ask about your contribution because we have got a point about own contribution. So tell me how much of this work was done by you?
We've made that work with our colleagues, and that analyzes and this is the aspect of a the bigger one project. And we analyzed with our tutors and with this third colleague from the first slide this aspect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have some additional questions? Seeing none, we'll now proceed to our next presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next work is the impact of air pollution on the respiratory system issues among the inhabitants of Svalbard.
Thank you. My name is Natalia Leszczyńska, and I would like to present a study about the impact of air pollution on the respiratory system issues among the inhabitants of Svalbard. Air pollution has significant impact on human health with a specific emphasis on respiratory system. For example, breathing problems, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and lung cancer. Longyearbyen, the capital of Svalbard, is home to approximately 2,500 residents and holds a distinction of being the northernmost inhabited land. It's located 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole. The city is situated in a deep valley and is predominantly surrounded by high elevations consistent of mountains and fjords, which these circumstances attract air pollution. We have three sources of anthropogenic air pollution on Svalbard. On a global scale, the migration of air pollution from the continental countries. On a local scale, the power plant currently operating on diesel fuel and snowmobiles emissions due to rapid expansion of tourism. Extreme low negative temperatures result in high air density. Humid air is heavy at the ground, which is explained by high density and low temperature included in Clapeyron's equation. These specific circumstances attract particle matter and give an impression of polluted air. On March this year, a paper survey and an online survey were conducted among randomly selected residents of Longyearbyen. The questionnaire consisted of 13 questions, including multi-choice answers. Additionally, measurements of air pollution in stationary and mobile conditions were conducted. In the study, there were 19 respondents, and the mean age of the respondents was 36 years old, with 37% of them being male. Around 95% of the participants described their health status as good or very good, contrasting with only 5% rating it as average. A large majority of the residents live in Svalbard less than 1 year. However, around 10% stay here more than 10 years. Most of the residents live in the city center of Longyearbyen. Nearly half of the respondents work physically and have an active lifestyle. However, around 60% spend less than 2 hours outside per day, probably due to extreme weather conditions. Additionally, factors potentially influencing respiratory system were analyzed. Around 21% of the respondents reported having respiratory problems, mostly in the winter or in the evening or at night. 15% reported having cough or dyspnea, and 5% claimed that their respiratory issues intensified since moving to Svalbard due to very dry air. Moreover, most of the participants expressed a belief that enhancing the standard of living could be achieved through various means. This included reducing tourism and transportation, phasing out mining activities in favor of renewable energy sources, and promoting environmental initiatives, both individually and on a global scale. Relationships between independent answers were analyzed by the Pearson chi-square test. The first result proves that respiratory issues occur in study population, and the second test indicates that respiratory issues are more common in winter than in a whole year. And in both cases, with the p-value less than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis. And how do we know if the number of respondents is representative? Sampling ratio is 0.76%, which seems to be low, but we collect data randomly and we consider the limit in the age interval 20 to 66 years. So the corrected sampling ratio is 0.9%. And using the Cochrane formula, we prove that 19 represents the right number of respondents. Airline delivered sensors for in-situ measurements of air quality. As we can see, an individual snowmobile generates pulses of nitrogen dioxide and particle matter pollutions, which is characterized by its occasional high levels. Stationary measurements exceeded applicable standards between 14th and 19th of March 2024. However, at present do not fill the future standard of the European Union directive. In conclusion, the study emphasizes the importance of environmental protection to safeguard the health of Longyearbyen residents, particularly by reducing air pollution in the city center. However, the drawback of the survey is its small sample size due to the town's limited population and challenges in reaching residents. Additionally, most respondents were young and in good health. Therefore, conducting a similar study with a larger and more diverse group is necessary to get the clearer picture of the community's health needs. Thank you very much. And I'm open for a discussion.
Thank you, and we invite everyone to ask the questions. Yes, I see we have one question from the jury.
Maybe not a question, like I think it's a common, because I will be interested in a study which will be a comparison between, I have to check the name Svalbard and for example, Krakow, because we know that the pollution in Krakow is huge. So it's a suggestion to do something similar in Krakow.
Yes, I cooperated with the scientists from AGH University of Krakow, and I got an invitation for such an expedition, so I was there in Svalbard personally, and I was taking part in such measurements, and we, with our colleagues, created such a questionnaire, and I conducted this questionnaire among the residents. So it's a nice suggestion to also do this in Poland. Probably it will be a lot easier to conduct such a questionnaire, and because of some challenges in reaching residents there, we have such a small number. However, thank you. It's
okay. The question was of course in a local language, yes.
It was in English. It was in English, yes.
Thank you.
English language.
I would like to ask about sources of energy on Svalbard. Do you have mostly solar or something else?
There is a power plant currently that operates on this diesel fuel. Decades ago, there was coal mine which were like working, and the coal miners were working there. So now the coal mine was implemented by the power plant and working on a diesel fuel. However, by 2025 there are some plans to implement only the renewable energy sources on Svalbard. And we will see the result if the
So each home on Svalbard is supplemented with the power from the power plant,
yes,
yeah?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, energy, yes.
Thank you very much. Do we have some additional questions? Seeing none, we thank you for the presentation and for the discussion.
Thank you very much.
Now we'll proceed to presentation number 10, and this is an inquiry to the jury to bear in mind that this presentation is not number 9, it's number 10, because the presenters from the presentation number 9 are absent at the moment. So please remember, it's the presentation number 10. So please welcome the next presenter, who will present the work entitled Impact of the Circumstances of SARS-CoV-2 Infection on the Degree of Disease Symptoms.
Hello, I'm Magda Pieczkowska. I'm a student from second year of Medical University of Silesia, and I would like to present to you all the impact of the circumstances of SARS-CoV-2 infection on the degree of disease symptoms. First of all, I would like to thank our works tutor, Dr. Barbara Pietrzyk, Dr. Patrycja Dolipok, and Dr. Tomasz Pryzwan. So to start with, I would like to talk a bit about transmissibility of the SARS-CoV-2 virus during pandemic. And as you probably recall, it was extremely dynamic, and it was so dynamic because of two things. First of all, people with mild clinical symptoms or mild clinical course of infection were usually professionally active, and they wasn't fully aware that they are having the infection, so they were transmitting the virus. And the second is the virus itself, because it was rather infectious, because it was able to infect new patients up to 10 days from the appearance of the first subtle symptoms of infection, which is quite long. And our study paid attention to the site of SARS-CoV-2 virus infection and the degrees of clinical symptoms of infection because it was one of not so many subjects that weren't studied before, or we couldn't find such a study, so that's why. And the aim was to examine the occurrence of COVID-19 symptoms and their severity in relation to circumstances of infectious virus. So first of all, I would like to talk a bit about patients and methods. So we conducted a retrospective study from October 2022 to March 2024, and it was based on original questionnaire detailing clinic characteristics, symptoms, if they were mild, moderate, or severe, and the infection site. And we conducted this study among 208 individuals, which is quite a great number because it's with normal proportion among the population. And the data underwent statistical analysis. The zero hypothesis was that there's no connection between the site and the severity of symptoms, and to decline the hypothesis, we should have P less than 0.05 to consider the correlation significant, and we use the Fisher test to compare the variables we have from the test. So maybe we would spend a minute talking about the patient's characteristics. So the majority of patients were women, and in the age range of 18 to 25 years old, as you can see in the table 1. And also they were followed by the age range 36 to 45 years old. And the predominant education level was secondary, and it was followed by higher. And I would like to say that the patients were all women because we want that more homogenic group to exclude any additional factors connected to the gender from our study, but we are currently working on some about males. So two results. Mild symptoms were predominant, followed by the moderate symptoms, as you can see in the chart here. And the most common infection sites were households and public spaces. So the cases with mild symptoms most commonly contracted the virus in public spaces or at home. The difference isn't that big, but those are the two most common sites, such as for patients with moderate symptoms who were often infected at home, followed by public spaces. So it's so those two sites were most common for sure. And as you can see on the chart, you can see that the difference between the percentage of these highly probable sites of infection are great, but there was no statistical significance because we get from this Fisher test DP equals 0.411, so there was no observed statistical difference, and it led us to conclusion that the site of SARS-CoV-2 infection does not have a direct impact on the degree of COVID-19 disease symptoms, despite the increased risk in larger crowds and public spaces. And that's it. Thank you very much. And if you have any question, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. And I see that we have a question from the jury.
I would like to ask about the database. Do you use the same as in the previous work connected about adverse effects? It was the same database?
Yes, it's the same database, but we divided it to smaller categories. We decided to do one bigger database because it enables us
to reach more patients, more candidates to the study, and have significant population.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a question maybe from the online jury?
Yes, I have a question. Could you tell me something about your contribution of this work?
So in this work, we were all equally engaged in like collecting the data, and then we also like worked on the data, like we put it from the paper work forms to the Excel, and then we divided it into smaller groups, and then our work went separate ways, where we, when my group, because I can't say for others, did the statistical analysis with help from our works tutor, because it was our first project like this. And then we were trying to have some conclusions, and also like, I think that's mostly it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Do we have any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to kindly remind the jury that it was the presentation number 10, not number 9. And now proceeding to presentation number 11, we would like to invite the presenter of the work entitled Knowledge of Ergonomics and its Application Among IT Industry Workers.
Okay, it's working. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Magda Henke, and I am senior year physiotherapy student here in our university. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about one of the most pressing issues in contemporary society, which is health and ergonomics in workplace. How do you... Oh, okay, it's working. The characteristic feature of modern times is a dynamic development of various technologies. Hence, the health adaptation to the existing reality is becoming increasingly important. Roughly speaking, change that occurs in a relatively short period of time is often referred as a revolution. And I hope you agree with me that our society has been revolutionized by computers. It ceased to be an exclusive tool for scientists and has become something which is very common nowadays. And of course, the introduction of new technologies made our lives much more easier on a daily basis. Nevertheless, the new problems have emerged, and understanding this issue and actually what we can do about it, this is precisely what I would like to delve into today. The study took place between single IT company, and 213 people participated. An auto-design questionnaire was presented, and it included a scale to measure pain intensity, and I also added neck disability index to establish how pain influences daily functionality. So, more and more people are working in jobs which involve prolonged sitting in front of a computer. And we all already know that these sedentary jobs are not only unhealthy for our bodies, but they also affect other areas of our lives. On average, a person spends 2/3 of their adult life in work, hence this sphere of life seems to be of a great importance. This is why ergonomics plays a crucial role in shaping appropriately working conditions. Roughly speaking, this is a scientific domain that aims at organizing workspace in a way or rather in relation to anatomical and psychophysiological human capabilities. And of course, knowledge is important, but what makes a difference, it is its implementation and how to implement a new desired behavior into our daily life. Let's dwell on it for a while. What we do on a daily basis is a result of repetitive behavior patterns, often called habits. If we want to implement a new desired one, we need three things. It's knowledge, motivation, and consistency in action. Investing some time and effort into developing a new habit definitely pays off, because after a certain period of practice, it will not require much of our attention. I believe most of you can relate to it when it comes to car driving, right? After a certain period of practice, you are able to talk to the passenger that's next to you or listening to an interesting podcast. And all of that while driving a car. And the same principle goes for ergonomics. There is no difference here. Results are actually sad, because they show that we need pain to motivate us to take action. Shouldn't we go for something more positive to motivate us? Besides knowledge and the ability of its implementation, I would like to address another issue here. More than half of my respondents in this research, they actually declared they do regular breaks during work time, yet they experience discomfort, and I wondered what might be the reason for that. Global observation is what we do when we have a free moment. We usually pick our phones up, we either scroll it, or we change sitting in one place for sitting in another place. So the question is, do such breaks even matter at all? Well, in terms of health, I strongly doubt it. They actually could have health benefits if we use them to make some stretches, exercise, or just taking a walk, but not when we shape our attention from one screen to another. And the same situation we encounter when it comes to what we do after work. If we were to choose physical activity in our leisure time, especially in these sedentary jobs, we could actually prevent its adverse consequences, at least to some extent, but definitely it is something that counts. And just to summarize, we take health for granted. We think this is something that we just have. And I agree, it is. Still, we suffer some pain, we've been sustained some injury, and I will not shock you right now. I won't, because my advice based on this research will be, don't wait till pain, anticipate and be preventive. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? I see a question from the jury.
I really like the topic and the way in which you present it, but I'm a little dissatisfied with the presentation of the methodology, because in this abstract it's written that you use the standardized questionnaire according to assess the pain, but it was not written in the presentation. Could you tell us something more about the methodology of the study?
Okay, I didn't present all the results I got from these respondents, because there were so many, and I decided to only take some to make it more coherent and not chaotic. I just want to squeeze the essence out of it, and that is why there is a lot of more I can talk about, but there is no time for that. So I just prefer to go to the depth of some zones than just say a word about something. I think it gives you more.
Okay, but when the subject is ergonomics of something, ergonomics means that something, that the shape is okay, that the size is is correct, is proper to the human. Ergonomic means that something is proper according to some physiological processes like a vision or a feeling, breaks, distance, time. So many aspects. Ergonomics means
a lot of things.
A lot of things.
That's
so
true.
maybe the subject should be different because the presentation is just a subject, is an element. But
yeah.
But even in an abstract, it's written much more.
Mm-hmm. What I wanted to emphasize that ergonomics, it is crucial. It's a big part, but we cannot replace daily activity by that. Like, I wanted to point out that there is a lot more than ergonomics. So that's why I wanted to mark that we should not forget about movement, everyday movement, and also we should pay attention what we do when we take a free moment. But because the global observation, as I said, is we just change sitting in one place for another. So we should be really more attentive with our daily choices, not only ergonomics, but much more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any additional questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now we'll proceed to the next presentation, presentation number 12. Knowledge and attitudes of nurses not working in the intensive care unit about transplantology. Is the author of this work present? Seeing that not, we will proceed to the next presentation.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Agnieszka Szałach. Hello, did you see my presentation?
Yes, we see the presentation and we hear you.
That's fine. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Agnieszka Szałach. I am the student of nursing and I represent the academy in Zamość. I am honored to give my presentation, Knowledge and Attitudes of the Nurses Not Working in Intensive Care Unit about the transplantology. My works are to Dr. Magdalena Brodowicz-Król from Academy of Zamość and Dr. Magdalena Korżyńska-Piętas from Medical University of Lublin. Transplantology is a medical field that aims to save health and life through the transplantation of cells, tissue or organs. It is quite young discipline of medicine.
Przepraszam bardzo, ale nie widzimy prezentacji na pełnym ekranie. Proszę jeszcze raz udostępnić i wybrać opcję ekran.
Czy teraz, now it's okay?
Nadal nie. Proszę wybrać opcję ekran, a nie prezentację. Teraz widzę, dziękuję.
Thank you. Transplantology is a medical field that aims to save health and life through the transplantation of cells, tissues, or organs. It's quite a young discipline of the medicine that is all the time developing. The beginnings of the transplantology is dated antiquely and the second half of the 19th century. Transplantology is an unusually demanding field of medicine, addressing issues related to broadly understood science, including anatomy, pathopharmacology, pathophysiology, but also ethics. The term transplantation comes from the Latin word transplantare, which means the task of the grating of transplanting. The most commonly used definition of the transplantation is a procedure involving a replacement or transfer of cell, tissue, or an organ from a donor or the received bodies that restore certain function of the human body that have been excluded by the disease. The first successful kidney transplant in Poland took place in 1966. The surgery was performed by Dr. Jan Nielubowicz and his team. The organ was taken from the diseased person. This procedure, due to a pioneering method, had been carried out with consent on the prosecutor. The reason was the lack of legal regulation relating to collection of human organs for transplantation purpose. The operation started very dynamic development of transplantation medicine in Poland. As commonly known, the transplantation of organs from living or diseased people, along with treatment, disease prevention, and education, is one of the methods which is fearful of society needs. In terms of the origin of cells, organs, or tissues, transplants divide into two types: living donor or cells, tissue, or organ in transplantation from a living donor. Diseased donor, the removal of cells, tissues, or organs from a human corpse. From transplantation might be carried of the diseased person that did not object during his or her lifetime. Which reference of the type of transplanted cells, organs, tissues, additionally transplant can be classified to hematopoietic cells like a bone marrow, umbilical cord blood, peripheral blood stem cells, tissue and cells like a biostatic grafts, biovital transplant, vascular organs like a kidney, liver, pancreas, heart, lung, and small intestine. Complex multi-tissue grafts, upper limb, and face. The aim of the study is to analyze information on nurses' knowledge about transplantology, the diagnosis research into attitude, organ transplantation. The study includes a group of 105 nurses, 102 women and 3 men who are not working in intensive care units. Other hospital wards at the primary care clinics were most often created. Respondents were informed about the purpose of the study. Participation in the study was voluntary. Approval was received from the Bioethics Committee. An unsatisfactory result was achieved as 20 respondents were found to have an insufficient level of knowledge, which gives 19.05%. 59 respondents, mean 56.19%, were a satisfactory level. But only 26 respondents, mean 24.76%, have a good results. Despite medication education, only more than half of the respondents consider brain death to be deaf and human beginning, which is undeniably a making fact, scientifically confirmed by law. Transplant medicine is currently undergoing intensive development. A very important element is in the implementation of nursing tasks in the field of education and raising awareness not only for patients but also the rest of the society on the idea of donation of organs, blood or bone marrow. This option suggests that there is need to educate and promote the knowledge about post-traumatic brainstem dysfunction and its consequence among students at behavior level of the studies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, and now I'd like to invite you to discussion.
I have a question concerning methodology, because you used the names good, satisfactory, but could you show us, because I haven't seen it, what was the scale? Do you hear me?
Could you repeat, please?
Yes, of course. I was asking you about the methodology, because in the results section you were using the terminology that the knowledge was good, satisfactory. What was the scale? When the knowledge was good, when the knowledge was satisfactory?
Yeah, there was the 3 level, like a knowledge response. That was that first one, like 56.19% was the satisfactory level.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
30%.
And the
second one, like only just at 24.76%. So we took that from the group 105 nurses from 2, 3, 4 units on our hospital.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional questions?
Yes, I have a question. Do you think knowledge of transplantation among non-intensive care nurses is necessary, and why? Do you hear me?
Hello, do you hear us? I think that we have some technical issues.
Pani już jest nieobecna.
Okay.
Yes, so that's right. So due to technical issues, we have to end this discussion, unfortunately, and to proceed to our next speaker. And the next presentation number 13, is the impact of the time of onset of COVID-19 disease symptoms on the degree of clinical symptoms.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for the warm welcome. My name is Katarzyna Pietroniec, and I'm a second-year student of the Medical University of Silesia, and I am more than happy to present on behalf of the Department of Medical Biophysics. The aim of the presentation is to present the results of the study that was conducted to assess the relationship between the time of onset of COVID-19 symptoms and their degree. To give a bit of a background about this for the study, the infectivity of COVID-19 begins on average 1 to 2 days before the appearance of the first symptoms. So that means the asymptomatic patient may become infectious in that short period of time after the exposure to the pathogen, but before the onset of clinical symptoms. However, the most infectious appear to be people who already have clinical symptoms. This seems to be due to the fact that there's the increasing number of virants in the body, which in turn promotes the faster transmission of the virus in the population. Now moving on to the study itself. The study took place between October 2022 and March 2023, and 208 patients took part in it. We used a self-prepared questionnaire that included also the information about the time of onset of the clinical symptoms. And the data then were analyzed using descriptive statistics with a p-value assumed below 0.05. And the variables were assessed compared using the Fisher test. A bit of more information about the characteristics of the study participants. The average age was 18 years old, plus minus 25 years, and the predominant education was secondary education. Now moving on to the results. The symptoms were most often observed 5 to 10 days after contact with the virus, which was reported by 29.33% of the patients. That was very closely followed by 2 to 4 days after contact, which was reported by 28.85% of the patients. When it comes to the severity of the symptoms, the most common were mild symptoms, which were reported by 56.73% of the patients, and medium symptoms, which were reported by 37.98% of the respondents. The results indicate a statistical significance between the time of onset of clinical symptoms and the degree of those symptoms, with a p-value of 0.0279. And there's also a significant statistical significance between the mild and medium degree of the symptoms, with a p-value of 0.0147. When it comes to the correlation between the time of onset and the degree of the symptoms, the most common were moderate symptoms, which appeared 2 to 4 days after contact with the virus, and that was reported by 37.97% of the respondents. And that was followed by mild symptoms, which were reported by 36.44% of the patients, and they appeared about 5 to 10 days after contact with the virus. It is also worth noting that 5.29% of the patients had severe symptoms, which did not require hospitalization. And also what is of note here is that in 4 people, the symptoms appeared just 1 day after exposure to SARS-CoV-2 virus. This graph shows visually the correlation between the time of onset of the symptoms and their degree, the degree of the severity of those symptoms. As can be seen, the most common were mild symptoms, and they most commonly appeared 5 to 10 days after contact with the virus. What also can be noted here is that with the shorter incubation period, there's less difference, a smaller difference between the mild and moderate symptoms, which seems to indicate that the shorter incubation period, the more severe the symptoms appear to be. What is also worth noting is that with the shorter incubation period, there was a slight increase in the severe symptoms. And to conclude, like already mentioned, the highest percentage of COVID-19 symptoms appeared 5 to 10 days after contact with the pathogen. And it is worth noting that the results seem to indicate that the shorter the incubation period, the more severe symptoms of COVID-19 appear to be. The results then highlight the need for continued vaccination against COVID-19 for individual and population protection. Thank you so much for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them all.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any questions?
Nothing.
Maybe from our online jury?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, so seeing no questions, we will now proceed to the next presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And now we will invite you to the next presentations entitled Diseases Accompanying Gut in Older People During the COVID-19 Pandemic.
Jak mam tutaj teraz to zrobić? Przepraszam.
So we hear you, but you need to share the screen
Już
to us.
udostępniam. Nie wiem, czy mnie słychać. Dźwięk.
Yes, we hear you.
widać. No to...
And now we see your presentation.
Już. Nie. No to nazywam się Anna Żygało. Jestem właśnie z koła naukowego właśnie działającego w Bytomiu.
Przepraszam bardzo, ale nie widzimy niestety prezentacji na pełnym ekranie. Proszę jeszcze raz udostępnić, ale wybrać opcję ekran. To jest pierwsza po lewej na górze.
Odpowiadają. Nie, bo to jest pokaz slajdów. Nie wiem. Gdzie to? Widzę.
Teraz już widzimy. Dziękuję.
Aha, bo mówię, no nie wiem, dobra. No to ja przygotowałam właśnie prezentację.
And before you begin, I would also like to remind you that we strongly encourage you to present in English because we have foreign students present in this session. This is only a suggestion. Of course, if you prepared a Polish presentation, you can present in Polish.
Bo było, że można po polsku.
Okay, so you can, of course, you can present in Polish if you prepared in Polish.
No to na wstępie powiem, że dna moczanowe to jest jedna z najpowszechniejszych właśnie chorób reumatycznych w Polsce, jak i na świecie. No i poza właśnie charakterystycznym tej jednostki zapaleniem stawów, które jest spowodowane okładaniem się kryształów moczanu sodu w płynie stawowym i okolicznych tkanek, a także tkance podskórnej istotne są również zmiany w układzie sercowo-naczyniowym czy nerkach. W związku z tym właśnie osoby w wieku starszym, jeżeli są chore właśnie na tą dnę, też towarzyszą właśnie różne właśnie inne przewlekłe choroby, które pogarszają im jakość życia. I dna moczanowa nie ulega samo wyleczeniu, a ponieważ jest właśnie, nasila ona współistniejące procesy chorobowe z zagrożeniem życia, włącznie i w dobie pandemii COVID-19. Ta grupa wiekowa była szczególnie obciążona z racji na ograniczony dostęp do lekarza i specjalistów. I moim celem pracy było przedstawienie, jakie jednostki chorobowe najczęściej towarzyszyły osobom w wieku podeszłym chorym na dnę moczanową w okresie pandemii COVID-19. Jeśli chodzi o cel pracy, no to, materiał, no to grupę badaną stanowiło właśnie 127 pacjentów, w tym 82 kobiety i 45 mężczyzn. Badani byli w wieku właśnie od 66 do 96 lat. No i badanie było retrospektywne. W związku z tym właśnie dokumentacji pacjentów chorych na dnę moczanową, leczonych w POZ-cie, Nowa 4, to było w Bytomiu. I wykonano właśnie analizę statystyczną, gdzie właśnie wykorzystano wyniki zebrano w programie Excelu, i wykonano również statystyce test kwadrat i za zmienną przyjęto wartość P poniżej 0,05. No i jak widzimy, no to głównie tutaj właśnie były te kobiety, no ładnie w wykresie jest to pokazane, jest ich 64%, prawie 65% stanowiły. No i więc tak, no najbardziej statystycznym wiekiem właśnie, gdzie stwierdzono istotę statystyczną, był właśnie ten wiek 71 do 80 lat. To było najwięcej osób, bo było 59 osób. Natomiast resztę nie było istotne statystycznie. No i no to właśnie to jest to, co powiedziałam. No i ogółem te pacjenci w tym wieku mieli właśnie, zgłaszali 3-4 jednostki właśnie te chorobowe, które występowały przy dnie. I tutaj oznaczono właśnie dnę moczanową, to jest właśnie w ICD-10 jako klasyfikacja M10. W związku z tym jeszcze średnie stężenie kwasu moczowego wyniosło właśnie średnio te 358 mg na decylitr. Jeśli chodzi właśnie o takie choroby, które również współistniały, no to jak możemy zauważyć, największe to są właśnie choroby sercowo-naczyniowe, gdzie i u kobiet, i u mężczyzn to jest bardzo się wybija. No, u mężczyzn to jest ponad 70%, no, u kobiet jest ponad połowa. Natomiast jeszcze właśnie endokrynne choroby były u mężczyzn wykazane, że 47% niecałe też występowało. Natomiast jeszcze dodatkowo właśnie zostały skategoryzowane właśnie choroby pod postaciami właśnie ICD-10. I tutaj właśnie no, dominowało głównie u kobiet właśnie te choroby układu krążenia. Natomiast u mężczyzn również, ale chyba tutaj one nie ma ich. Okej. No, później było również nadciśnienie tętnicze, cukrzyca, zaburzenia lipidowe. Natomiast u mężczyzn najczęściej właśnie też była ta właśnie nadciśnienie tętnicze IE10. No, ale również u mężczyzn pojawiła się I25, w związku z tym to jest choroba wieńcowa, natomiast u kobiet no, nie było tak istotnie właśnie tak wysokiego czynnika. Jeszcze dodatkowo, co tutaj ważne, tak, no to jest F87, to też to tylko wystąpiło u tych kobiet, czyli F87 to było zaburzenia lipidowe. No i podsumując właśnie, jeszcze wspomnę, że te różnice nie były niewielkie i statystycznie były nieistotne, no ale jeśli chodzi o takie wnioski, no to nadciśnienie tętnicze, cukrzyca i hipercholesterolemia najczęściej występowały właśnie u chorych na pneumoczanową w czasie pandemii COVID-19. Mężczyznom z dną najczęściej towarzyszyło właśnie nadciśnienie tętnicze, cukrzyca i choroba wieńcowa. I dziękuję za uwagę.
Bardzo dziękujemy i przekazuję mikrofon do pierwszego pytania.
Jeżeli mogę, to taka uwaga, że jeżeli rzeczywiście te różnice są takie niewielkie, to trochę niebezpiecznie, żeby takie duże, bardzo szerokie wnioski wyciągać, ale to taka, że tak powiem, sugestia. Jesteście Państwo studentami, uczycie się, więc myślę, że warto mieć to na uwadze. No i chciałabym też zapytać oczywiście o wkład własny, bo z tego, co Pani powiedziała, materiał został pozyskany, więc w takim razie jakie było Pani zadanie?
No ja miałam ogółem te wszystkie dane wpisać właśnie do Excela, bo właśnie pomysłem do temat tego badania jest pani właśnie profesor Łakoko, no bo to ona jest właśnie reumatologiem, lekarzem, no ja natomiast właśnie tam miałam za zadanie właśnie opracować te wszystkie wyniki.
Rozumiem, czyli stworzyła Pani bazę, Pani stworzyła bazę, Pani opracowała wyniki, Pani przygotowała prezentację. Tak, bardzo dziękuję.
Czy są jeszcze jakieś dodatkowe pytania?
Tak, ja mam pytanie. Jakby Pani mogła powiedzieć, jaką rolę odegrała tutaj pandemia COVID? Bo jak wiemy, wielochorobowość u osób starszych to jest dosyć typowa przypadłość, czyli występowanie więcej niż 2 jednostek chorobowych, więc jaką rolę tutaj odegrała pandemia COVID?
Znaczy to na pewno to jest to, że osoby mieli utrudniony dostęp do tego lekarza POZ-u, czy nawet do tych specjalistów, to były te teleporady. No, lekarze tak nie chcieli przyjmować, przez co też no, te choroby mogły tak bardziej się też nasilić właśnie w czasie pandemii COVID-19.
Czy na ten temat ma Pani jakieś dane, czy raczej jest to taka stawiana hipoteza, że mogło tak się wydarzyć z Pani strony?
Znaczy to jest taka moja hipoteza, bo też ja no, podobno miałam pracę licencjacką na temat COVID-a, no i dlatego tak, ja tak akurat to tak po prostu sobie tak hipotezę robię.
Okej, dobrze, dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękujemy bardzo. Thank you very much. And now we'll proceed to presentation number 9, if the authors are ready and present. They are. Great. So we will proceed to the presentation number 9, Medicus curat verbum Sanat, the impact of a doctor's interpersonal skills on the treatment process.
Dear committee, dear guests, my name is Magdalena Szustkiewicz and I am Jan Długosz University in Częstochowa student, and I would like to present our topic, Medicus curat verbum sanat, the impact of a doctor's interpersonal skills on the treatment process in the example of dialysis patients. Our work tutor is Dr. Katarzyna Kowal. And main research problem was what are the determinants of non-compliance with medical recommendations in the study group of chronic dialysis patients. And the research issue is the first one: what is the patient's level of acceptance of hemodialysis as a renal replacement treatment method? The second one: what are the possibilities of a chronically dialysis patient to follow medical recommendations? And the third one: how does a patient on chronic dialysis evaluate how the doctor who provides him with therapeutic recommendations communicates with him? Method and study group. The study group consisted of 60 people and consisted of patients of the dialysis center at the Department of Nephrology, Transplantology and Internal Diseases of the Independent Public Clinical Hospital, Milencki Medical University of Silesia in Katowice. And the study was carried out using the IDI type individual in-depth interview method with a standardized list of information sought. And if we come to results, because of our extensive research material and the lack of time, we can only present certain topics that we found most interesting. Topics like a doctor who can control emotions, or topic of paternalistic attitude of the doctor won't be presented today. Also, because of our presentation's topic, we will focus on minuses of the doctor-patient relation. Lack of empathy. One of the main complaints for dialysis patient was the lack of empathy from doctors. This allegation concerns mainly male doctors, with longer experience. Patients complained that doctor did not understand their concerns and was dismissive. There were voices about treating patients wholesale. The second one, the most serious problem indicated by the respondents is the lack of the full clarity regarding the patient's treatment plan. This factor is perceived by patients as particularly important from the point of view of acceptance of dialysis as a treatment method. The patient's ignorance of the treatment plan leaves him or her suspended in an unspecified treatment project, which is a significant factor in the lack of commitment to following medical recommendations. Dialysis patients would like to know, for example, when kidney transplantation is being considered, if in their case as a method of renal replacement therapy, and if so, after what period of dialysis treatment the transplantation qualification procedure can begin. The respondents also emphasized the problem of their lack of participation in determining the treatment plan that they really counted on. The problem, what is fundamentally unfavorable for building the doctor-patient relationship, is the communication gap between the doctor and the patient. Doctors whom patients met in their experience of dialysis therapy were often reluctant to talk. They didn't allow the patient to speak, preventing him from asking questions. According to the respondents, communication between a doctor and the patient is based on on what the doctor wants to find out. Such behaviors make patients feel rejected and treated as objects. Respondents indicated doctors with younger experience as more open to contact with patients, who, according to the respondents, visibly show greater interest in the patient's well-being. The respondent's experience shows that a doctor who is not the person treating a specific patient shows a little interest in the patient. The study also raised issues of the language of doctors, which is sometimes incomprehensible to patients undergoing dialysis. Using professional medical language in communication with the patient makes him start looking for the information on the internet. In the context of this problem, the other fear of patients comes out. They decide to not ask the doctor questions about the meaning of the unclear medical terms because of the fear that the doctor will be offended or angry. And therefore, our results take into account disadvantages that translate into not compliance with medical recommendations in the doctor-patient relationship. On the basis of the collected data, it is also able to outline the image of a good doctor to whom the subjects attribute the following features according to their frequency of indications. A good doctor is the one who can patiently listen to the sick, who is emphatic, who shows empathy, who is genuinely interested in the patient, can talk to the patient, motivates to fight for your health. He informs, explains what is happening in the body of the patient. He is caring and cares about the patient. He is always honest in the contact with patients. He shows that he cares about the patient, gives hope, not takes it. He has a lot of knowledge. He is smiling and he has a sense of humor. So, thank you for your attention, and I encourage you to ask questions if you want.
Thank you very much, and we have a second Kato joining us on the stage. And do we have any questions?
Maybe I have a question. You said about lack of empathy. What can it come from? What do you think about this?
Like when we return to the last slide, can you? Can we?
We would ask to reshare the presentation, if that's possible. I'm sorry, apparently we have some technical issues.
Okay, so I will continue.
Okay. Now we have a presentation.
So, as you can see, those characteristics are rather like very normal person being a nice person, you know, like can listen, being empathetic. Those are like really normal characteristics. And I think the question we should ask is not how can we regain those characteristics, but when did the doctors lose it? So, like, answering your question is, I think, it's about something we said about, something like Magda said during our presentation, is that there are a lot of patients, and there is like, doctors have to treat them like as whole group. There is a lack of individuality in, I think, I can say, Polish healthcare, and I think that is where it's come from.
Okay, thank you so much.
Do you have any additional questions? And seeing none, thank you for the presentation. And with that, all submitted papers have been presented. I'd like to congratulate to all of the presenting authors and participants of the session of Public Health and Healthcare too. At this point, I would like to ask the president of the jury, Dr. Jolanta Malinowska-Borowska, for a few words to sum up the session.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, I would like to thank you for all your work, for all your efforts to open the doors, scientific doors of public health. I am really respectful to all your efforts. So thank you one more time for all your papers concerning public health. As you see, public health is ergonomics, is occupational health. We have papers concerning transplantology. So I have to thank you for all your works, and don't stop. Do more and more, because still there are many fields to open, many things to do. So don't stop, and do as much scientific work as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for these words, and I'd like to truly appreciate comments, accurate observation, and work on presentation assessment of all members of our esteemed jury, Dr. Jolanta Malinowska-Borowska, Dr. Mateusz Grajek, and Dr. Anna Nisler. Yes. And with that very optimistic and positive accent, I'd like to conclude our session and to invite you for the decoration and closing ceremony of International Medical Conference of Silesia 2024. This closing ceremony will be held in Theatre Rialto on Friday at 6 p.m. On behalf of the Student Scientific Association, I would like to thank you all for participation in this session. Thank you.